Hello, I'm Steven Roy Goodman, host of Higher Education Today, a production of the University of the District of Columbia. Welcome back to the education program that connects you to contemporary issues, people, and institutions involved in the world of higher education. Today we'll be talking about the American University of Afghanistan. Leslie M. Schweitzer is chair of the Friends of the American University of Afghanistan. Leslie was formerly Senior Trade Advisor for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and is currently Senior Vice President of Capitalize. Stephenie Foster is Professorial Lecturer at the Women in Politics Institute at American University here in Washington. Stephenie recently completed a one-year tour at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, focusing on women and civil society. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. Maybe if we could start with you, Leslie. I'm shocked when I was getting ready for the show that a lot of people didn't even know that we had a university in Afghanistan. Could you say a word or two about what the American University of Afghanistan does and why we have it?
We are in our infancy. We're 7 years old, and we're modeled after the American University of Beirut and the American University of Cairo. Both of those institutions have become very significant in the region. Of course, they're 150 years old, and we're 7. The university is the first and private, co-ed, not-for-profit university in the history of Afghanistan. So it's a very novel concept. Liberal arts is not a term that is easily translated in Farsi or Dari. So we've had to do quite a process of educating the ministries, the student, the whole country about the significance of a liberal arts university. Everything is taught in English, and we have just started the first MBA program in the history of the country, and we've started a law school with Stanford University. So we are growing rapidly.
And how many students are there at the university?
We started with 50, and we have now over 1,000 undergraduates, and we have another 1,000 in various programs that we conduct. We do specialized programs for various ministries, and so altogether about 2,000.
And Stephenie, when you were in Afghanistan, you were working with the State Department or USAID, if I understood that correctly, but you did liaison work with the university.
That's right. I was in Afghanistan for a little over a year, working for the U.S. State Department in the Public Affairs section. And I worked on a lot of different programs and projects around the issues that women face in Afghanistan. Obviously, the higher education sector is a sector that's critically important. Very important to have a lot of women have access to higher education and university education so that a professional class of Afghans can include a lot of women. And I worked a lot with AUAF. The U.S. government does fund significantly operations and other programming at the embassy. And so I was responsible for working with AUAF primarily around some women's scholarship programs to get more women at the university and really try to diversify the student body.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, this may be a little controversial, but I mean, if I were a dad in Afghanistan, would I worry if my daughter were going to get a Western education?
Well, you know, and Leslie can also speak to this quite a bit. For example, when we were putting together the scholarship program for the American University of Afghanistan, which is a 5-year scholarship that these young women get, and we fund about 50 each semester, so, you know, to try to kind of ratchet up the number of women at the university. I can tell you that literally, I think 1,000 or over 1,000 young women applied. And so they are certainly, many of them, from families that are interested in having their daughters attend a school like American University of Afghanistan. So I mean, while there may be families that aren't, I think there's a significant interest both for young men and women to attend there and to get really a world-class education.
But I meant in terms of the politics of the region. You know, I'm not an expert like you guys are in terms of the region, but certainly I understand what how the Taliban looks at women in education. Wouldn't I be a little scared of that?
Well, I'll tell you that, you know, post the Taliban, after 2001 or 2, there's been a tremendous explosion of the number of young girls really in school. About 37% of school children, primary and secondary school children in Afghanistan, are girls. So clearly a lot of families send their girls to school. And there are parts of the country that send even larger percentages of girls to school, and parts of the country with fewer. So certainly, this is a country that's really transitioning, but there's been such tremendous progress in 12 years in terms of the commitment that Afghans themselves have to higher education and education of every level. The one interesting thing I'll say is that actually one of the things that has been the biggest impediment for young women going to universities, whether it's American University of Afghanistan or the public universities in Afghanistan, Kabul University, Balkh University, et cetera, is women's dorms. And so there's a premium on ensuring that young women can live in a safe and secure facility, whether it's a women's dorm or some kind of boarding house. And so those are the kind of things that actually the U.S. Embassy has also been working on, as well as USAID, to ensure that there's more living space for these young women who do choose to go to these universities.
Well, and speaking of the living space and the security, Leslie, I'm assuming that there's some sort of security at the university that's a little bit more extensive than at the regular U.S. University of X or Y.
Absolutely. And just adding to Stephenie's comments about women, one of the things that is so important for us at the university is to provide security for these women and housing, as Stephenie mentioned. And I must say that the reputation of the university has changed significantly over the course of the 7 years. We started with one woman student, and now our freshman class, partially thanks to the scholarships, is 55% women. There has been a stigma. We have American in the name, and it's co-ed. Most of these young women, when they come to the university for testing, it's the first time they've ever sat in a room with somebody from the opposite gender, other than a mother or a father. And the same is true for the boys. But we find that after just a very short period of time, they start to adapt. And we are finding that by offering these scholarships, we're getting now girls who are interested in coming from all over the country. It used to be just Kabul, and it was a very small group. And now they understand that it is an extraordinary education, and it's an option against leaving the country. They can stay in the country and get a very good education. Security is a very important part of what we provide our students. There are walls around the campus. It is a closed campus. In other words, students and faculty can enter freely throughout the day. Others need to be announced, and we go through a security check. We must protect our students. And with the name American in the university name and the fact that it's co-ed, it does separate us a bit from other universities in the country. So.
And what's going to happen when U.S. troops leave Afghanistan?
Well, I just came from the American University of Beirut, and the American University of Beirut is 150 years old. They have had to evacuate. They have had numerous wars, civil wars and others. They have had to close their campus, and they've survived 150 years. We don't see 2014 as a deadline. We see it as a challenge. And we are very comfortable, as our student body is comfortable, in that we have built a strong enough foundation in this institution that students will keep coming, and we can keep providing them with the services that are so important for them to get an education such as this. So it is, stay tuned. I mean, this is, it's a fragile environment, and we're 7 years old. So I wish we were 50 years old. And believe me, when I walked through the American University of Beirut, I wept, because I thought, this is where I hope we can be in 150 years. But we are building a tremendous institution of world-class higher education. And we will continue. It may not be easy. There may be some difficult days, but our intention is we are there, and we're there for the long haul.
Well, let's talk about that if we can. What are some of the programs that I would take if I decided to enroll at the university?
The most popular subjects are business, which I think is very encouraging. We don't get very many students who want to be a philosophy major or archaeology major. They understand that to get good jobs, they need to have a business background. The MBA program is so well subscribed. We've graduated our first contingent of students in our MBA program. The 5-year law school, which was started by Stanford University. We worked with Stanford for several years on rule of law programs, and they have been sending us professors and students to put together the rule of law program, as well as they have written law books in Afghanistan, covering all the various kinds of law that there are in Afghanistan. So our students have a choice, and it's a liberal arts education, so we do require them to take a series of courses that are perhaps outside their major. We have probably one of the best science labs in the entire country. We have a library with 30,000 books. I'm not sure there's a library with that many books anywhere else in the country. So it's very much a free academic environment. The courses, we do have required courses, as every university does, but the most popular area is business and business-related management, et cetera.
Well, but that's not all that controversial, but the issue of academic freedom, as you know, around the world is. And so how free is the university from political pressure?
It is absolutely free from political pressure. We do not get involved in politics. We do not support certain political parties. We are an Afghan institution for Afghan students. That's also very important to understand. We are registered in the Ministry of Higher Education. We work very closely with the ministry and with other ministries throughout the country. So we are integrated into what is happening in the rest of Afghanistan. So it's, again, it's challenging, as a startup university is anywhere, but particularly in an environment such as this one.
And Stephenie, you spent some time there, you know, as from the embassy perspective, but I know that you've also traveled extensively around the world and dealt with a lot of other universities. What makes this university unique relative to some of the other schools that you visited?
Well, I think the unique thing about AUAF, for me, or perhaps one of the more unique things about it, is that in fact it is an Afghan institution, but that it's a university that really is in the American model, alongside the other American universities around the world, in looking at how to teach really liberal arts type of education in countries that are going through really transitionary times, which I think is really true in Afghanistan. So what I think is unique about AUAF is really, in some ways, the context in which it is situated. This is a country that has a rich history that has obviously been marred by war and conflict for the last 30 years. And really to kind of recapture the ability of Afghans to get an education in Afghanistan that helps them be part of the global community. And that's not to say that public universities in Afghanistan don't do a good job, because they do. But they are taught in the native local languages, Dari and Pashto. They tend to not have the tremendous amount of contact with professors from the United States and other English-speaking countries. And so AUAF really gives Afghans that window, learning in an environment that's taught in English, that is a global language, and taught by professors who have a global perspective about what they've learned in their countries that Afghan students can take and use in Afghanistan.
Just one other comment. I think one of the things that American education has that is so unique around the world is we really do promote critical thinking. And our system is based upon that. We take that for granted. Certainly students do, and certainly my children did. And in Afghanistan, it's really quite unusual to be in a classroom and actually to contradict politely your professor, to have your own ideas, and to critically be able to take information and then have your own thoughts. Again, we take that for granted, but in Afghanistan, that's what the university is founded upon. It is a very different form of education. And it is one that once a student is accustomed to that, I'll tell you a very quick, funny story. One of my first board meetings in Kabul, and we had been obviously promoting the concept of critical thinking, and we just had a student council election, and we just elected they elected a new president. And the board had been there for about 3 days, and the student council president came to us with a document that was really quite thick. And I said, oh, what is this? And he said, well, we put this together to tell you, the board, what you're doing wrong in running this university. Now, after I sort of gulped and I thought, be careful what you wish for, I said to him, I said, wonderful, and we will look at this, and we are very interested to hear your opinions, but perhaps that's not quite the right way to present this concept to the board. So we had a discussion about it, and they understood that maybe just saying this is what you're doing wrong, perhaps there could have been more of a dialogue. But it tells you that they feel comfortable and independent, and they feel as though their ideas are worthwhile, which is exactly what we want the next generation of leaders to feel. So.
Well, interesting story. And in terms of the next generation, since you've been doing this for a little while now, where are some of the graduates going?
It is amazing. First of all, they're all either employed or they are Fulbright scholars studying around the world, or they're pursuing higher education in another part of the world. The number 2 person, the Deputy Minister of Commerce, is a graduate of our MBA program. When I was there about 10 days ago and I was going to various ministries on other business, I was amazed at how many people I ran into that were graduates of the university. They're throughout the ministries. Some have become entrepreneurs and started their own businesses. They're employed by the major telecom companies. We have one of the telecom companies that said, I will employ any graduate who graduates from the American University of Afghanistan. So getting a job is not a problem. They speak English. They have been involved in management courses. They are globally aware students, and so they do get good jobs.
Which is great, but as you were saying that, I was thinking about the American University in Cairo, and that the complaint that a number of Egyptians have made over the years is that AUC is basically a school for elites, and that AUC is just training elites. Are you doing something similar in Afghanistan?
No, we are, and I think that's obvious by 70% of our students have some sort of financial aid. Our students are coming from all over the country. They're all walks of life, and they are not the elite. They are, in fact, as Stephenie said, when we advertised for the scholarships that we received from the public affairs section of the embassy, and there were 45 spots, I think at that point, over 1,000 girls showed up. These are, they're hungry for education. And now that we have really proven the fact that we are very, very, an institution that is world class, and that our students are able to get good jobs, students now are coming to us in droves. So no, it is absolutely not. They come from all walks of life. And I could go through the stories of our students, some of whom have actually had their families tell them to move out because they're coming to the American University of Afghanistan. It's a courageous move for them to come to us. And many girls, their families will not support them as they might support a boy. So they're seeking financial assistance, but they want to come to this institution.
Mm-hmm. And just one point on the scholarships for women. So through the public affairs section, we have now given, I think, about 150 5-year scholarships, and I think it's important to point out what that means. Yep. The reason that we have, or the U.S. government, I'm no longer with the U.S. government, but came up with the idea of 5 years is understanding that in order to graduate from American University, and to get the most out of it, of course, you have to speak fluent English. Some of these young women speak good English but not great English, and so the 5th year, which is essentially the first year, gives them the opportunity to enroll in a program at American University that works specifically on their English language skills. So these young women receive up to 5 years of room and board and tuition and other expenses paid for, so that they can obviously get a great education and be part of the next generation of Afghan leaders who are going to remake the country, whether it's they're going to be lawyers or MBA students or be in public administration. So I think really the scholarship program, in addition to encouraging and increasing the number of women, also I think diversifies the type of people who can attend American University of Afghanistan in terms of their financial background.
Well, how would you compare AUAF than to American University here in Washington.
Right, and I should start by saying they're not affiliated in any way at all. So, you know, I think in some ways they're similar, because I think one of the most exciting things about being on the AUAF campus is you walk into the campus and it's very much like a campus anywhere. You see young men and women you know, reading, studying, having coffee at the coffee shop, eating lunch, you know, doing what students do, which is, you know, use this as a time to really explore what they want to learn and think about how to contribute to their societies moving forward. I think, of course, there's differences in terms of, you know, American University here and all the other universities that I've ever been at in America are bigger. They have a longer tradition, and I think that shows to some extent. This is just, as Leslie said, we're used to the way we go to college here. I think it's a bit of a new experience for a lot of Afghans to be at an American university. But I think the exciting thing is how similar the kind of campus life seems. You have student body elections and posters for the, you know, campaigns and all sorts of flyers about things to do. So in some ways, it's a lot like being anywhere.
And at graduation, they wear caps and gowns and they throw their hats in the air, and it's very similar to any graduation ceremony anywhere in the United States. It's an oasis. It is truly an oasis, and I think that's the difference. There also is a tremendous pride among the students for the university, and they're proud of themselves, and they're proud of the fact that this university exists in their country, and they are tremendously proud of their country. It provides a safe, secure place for them to study. We don't necessarily think of U.S. colleges and universities in those terms. We provide much more than just an education.
Well, that's interesting, because my understanding is that you have some very high-profile support, including from former First Lady Laura Bush. You've had tremendous support from a number of dignitaries from the United States who've gone out to the university. So, one, what do you ask them to do? And two, what is your role as the chair of the Friends group?
Well, I started the Friends because there was no liaison office in the United States for the university, and we needed to raise money. So it's a 501c3 located here in Washington, and the purpose is really to be a liaison for the university in the United States, and as well as around the world, and to raise money. So the relationship is the Friends is actually, as a 501c3, its mission is to raise money for private higher education in Afghanistan, and we have a strong focus on women as well. The dignitaries, Laura Bush was involved with women's issues in Burma and Afghanistan, very much under the radar screen, and it was several Afghans had formulated the university. One was the former Minister of Higher Education, many of whom had gone to American University in Beirut. And so it was a fledgling institution, and Laura Bush visited and saw the value of this as far as the co-ed education, and helped us get the initial funding from USAID. And USAID has been a very generous funder over the course of the last 5 years, and we have an agreement with them over the next 5 years going forward. Our funding is not totally dependent upon U.S. government. We're at about 65%, various kinds of U.S. government funding, but the rest of it is all up to private sector. Our largest donors are Afghans, which is a very, very good sign. Afghans who have been educated outside the country and understand the significance of having a fine institution within the country. We're very dependent upon spokespeople. We need to get the word out. As you said in the very beginning, most people don't know we exist. And as hard as we work to get the message out, and we would love to be on the front pages of the newspaper. We were on the Post a few weeks ago, above the fold, right under the Redskins win, which I figure is probably a very good spot for us. But it is very hard to get this message out that this is all good, and this is something Americans have made an investment in, a small one, a very small investment in comparison to what we've invested overall in Afghanistan over all of these years. And it is making a difference. It is a really incredible legacy to Americans, but also to people from all over the world, because we're getting more and more investment. We have a new international campus, and we're focusing on getting NATO countries to confirm that they are serious about how they feel about Afghanistan's future. So we are very dependent upon getting the word out, and again, that's why we're so appreciative of doing this, and the word out that this is very positive. And it's when you go there, you can't believe that this exists. And we welcome you to come. We'll do a show there. You can speak to the kids, spend a couple of days and lecture, and it will be the most popular course on campus, I promise you. But you have to see it to believe it. It's really amazing.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. We've only have another minute or so to go for this segment today. Stephenie, what would you like to say to Americans thinking about going to Afghanistan? Because you just went for a relatively short time, and I assume some people said, wow, that's a little crazy. Why are you doing that? How would you answer that?
Sure. I mean, I think people have concerns about Afghanistan, as we all know, in terms of security and the future of the country. But, you know, my overriding feeling after being there for 13 months is that the country is really full of people who want to do what people around the world want to do for their countries, which is build a better place. And I found it to be an exciting place full of people who really are looking to the future of their country. They're working in a very different environment than we are, but they are really trying to figure out how to build a future for their families, how to send their kids to school, how to, you know, really do what people do all over the world. So I encourage people to, you know, to really learn more about Afghanistan, to think about the country in a different way, and to be excited when they hear about things like AUAF, which really are tremendous. And I think the U.S. government is so proud to be able to support AUAF, because it is an institution that really, really helps Afghanistan build a better and newer generation of leaders.
Well, on that note, we're going to have to say thank you to both of you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
If you would like additional information about Leslie Schweitzer or Stephenie Foster, please visit auaf.edu.af or stepheniefoster.com. If you have comments or suggestions about higher education today, please send an email to our viewer mailbox at highereducationtoday@topcolleges.com. Thank you for watching. We will continue to bring you quality discussions about important matters in today's college and university world. Please join me again for another edition of Higher Education Today. I'm Steven Roy Goodman, and you've been watching Higher Education Today.